Jim Hooley in his news report touched on this, and it's a front page story in the Denver and the West section of today's Denver Post. Headline, Hicks oil gas spiel irks some. Talking about Governor Hickenlooper. The subhead reads, the drilling industry's ad has the governor touting virtues. I read this entire piece, and the piece certainly leans in the direction of the environmentalists, but, this is the Denver Post, and the Denver Post leans left. Here's the lead. Environmental groups on Monday urged Governor John Hickenlooper to yank ads paid for by the Colorado Oil and Gas Association, in which he claims there has been no contamination of groundwater associated with drilling and hydraulic fracturing. Hickenlooper's office declined to address that request, but COGA, that's the Colorado Oil and Gas Association, issued a statement saying it stands by our public service announcements. It's certainly true that spills and releases associated with equipment failures at drilling sites have occurred and have impacted shallow groundwater, Hickenlooper spokeswoman Megan Castle said. That's a very different process from drilling and hydraulic fracturing. The ads began running on radio last week. You've heard them probably on 850 KOI. I certainly have. And in them, Hick touts tough oil and gas rules Colorado established in 2008. Since then, we have not had one instance of groundwater contamination associated with drilling and hydraulic fracturing. And that's true. The reason that the Colorado Oil and Gas Association is fighting back is because environmentalists, especially of the more radical variety, have been hoist by their own petard. They exaggerate. They're dogmatic. They understand the dynamics of public policy, and they don't want to give an inch toward moderation because they know if they give an inch, then the ultimate compromise, and of course there will always be an ultimate compromise. We're talking about trade-offs here. If they give an inch, the ultimate compromise will be farther from their dogmatic position. So they stake out dogmatic positions. If you saw that so-called documentary, this propaganda piece a couple of years ago called Gasland, I did. It was outrageous. All of the tales of people opening up their faucets and flames coming out. Yeah, that happens, but it has nothing to do with hydraulic fracturing. That's to do with methane that occurs naturally. They grossly overstated their case and left themselves exposed to valid criticism. And I'm delighted, even though John Hickenlooper is a Democrat, that he's not off the environmental chart as Governor Ritter was as a Democrat. I think Hick, even though he's a Democrat, and he has to operate within the boundaries of the Democrat coalition, he's got some wiggle room there. And on a number of issues, I think he's been very moderate, and I give him credit for that. I was wondering when he was running whether or not he would have to hew to the Democrat Party line on everything, and he hasn't, which has ingratiated himself with some Republicans and angered some Democrats, like the radical enviros. In this story, it goes on to say that a letter to Hickenlooper was composed by 13 environmental groups. And it says the COGA ad misleads the public by ignoring the high incidence of groundwater contamination from spills and releases of toxic chemicals at or near drilling sites. High incidence? No, I wouldn't say so. Some incidence. Yeah, I'd say so. This, again, is part of the trade-off in a society. We have legitimate environmental concerns, and we also have legitimate energy concerns and economic concerns. And you've got to consider both. Here's a statement from Elise Jones. She's the director of the Colorado Environmental Coalition. As soon as you hear Colorado Environmental Coalition, you know you're talking to a dogmatist here, or hearing from one. She says the unmistakable takeaway message from the ad is, don't worry, everything is okay when it comes to water and oil and gas exploration. That's not the case. Well, everything is okay? Maybe that's an overstatement. Everything isn't okay. There are some problems. But by and large, things are fairly okay, and that's good enough for me. If you're going to allow people to drive cars, there are going to be unintended consequences, car crashes. If you're going to allow commercial air travel or military air travel, there are going to be airplane crashes. Part of the trade-off. It happens. The dogmatists don't want to concede the trade-offs. If you're going to allow pharmaceutical companies to develop, manufacture, and then sell prescription drugs, every now and then, even though we have a Food and Drug Administration, we're going to discover that there were unintended, very negative side effects of those drugs. It's a trade-off. Even the drugs that are approved. When you read the notification in the box that you open up that contains your pills or your ointment or whatever you're using, there's a long list of possible side effects. Possible side effects, not prevalent side effects. If they were common, then the drug wouldn't have been approved. But there are side effects. That's a trade-off. The same thing with environmental policy. All right. 713-8585, our telephone number. Thoughts about this, give us a call. Right back on 850 KOA.